say that I, had a goal to be an artist. It's kind of, I just never stopped being one when I was doing other things. Good people attract good people.
Well, this is a continuation of the Anatomy of Mountain Town series, and I'm hitting all the bases here. This is exciting. I wanted to interview an artist, and not only am I interviewing an artist today, but he's also a trail builder, one of the foundations of Salida, mountain towns, really any community. Great trails build great communities. Great art builds great communities. So talking to this guy is just going to be a fantastic conversation. And one of the things I'm most excited about is I know Brinkley Messick. That's my guest today, but I've never met him. I just know him through Oveja Negra and his work. So he's a little bit of a mystery to me, which is important for any artist, I think, is to have a little bit of mystery surrounding them. So without much further ado, today's guest is Brinkley Messick. How you doing, Brinkley?
I'm awesome. I'm flattered to be included in this series, especially with some of the folks you just mentioned you're interviewing. I hope I hope I live up.
I think you will. I mean, we're setting in Brinkley's studio where he creates his art. It's an old shipping container. Connex is a proper term for these containers, and it's a great way to refurbish or reuse something that's already out there. And they're just quaint, so it's real comfortable there. Our perspective is I'm going to be closer to the camera, so I'm going to look huge, and Brinkley's further away with his art. And we'll see how the video works out. And what's your dog's name?
This is Rigel. This is Rigel Beans, and her brother's barking in the background is Ronnie James Dio.
Ronnie James Dio. Pull the mic closer to you.
Okay.
Yeah. If you turn your head away, it'll really.
I'll try to.
Oh, look at that! Sounds so
Alrighty.
Good. And I say this all the time in the podcast. Really, you're really professional when you do a podcast is when you constantly tell the guest, "Hey, just pull the mic a little bit closer to you."
Feel free to correct anything.
They all do that. Every podcast. Say, could you just go ahead and pull it a little closer to you? Ronnie James Dio. I mean, that's like a throwback to my past. I guess you're a big Dio fan, big Black Sabbath.
I got introduced to Dio from a mountain bike video. The Holy Diver was an intro to. I was in college, so the song had been out for more than a decade. But the
little bit, yeah.
Just the opening riff to Holy Diver it always gets me amped.
Oh, man. So that goes back to my high school days. So Holy Diver, I can remember driving through Snyder, Texas in my 1984 Bronco with two 12-inch subwoofers. And at that time, no one had stereo systems like that.
Yeah.
I was so hardcore audio that I had a Nakamichi deck as a tape player, and it didn't even have music search on it. That was available at the time with cassette players, but I mean, you had to like fast forward and stop on your own. And to clean the heads, you pushed a couple of buttons and the whole thing opened up, and I took a Q-tip and I'd clean the heads to get the dirt off because if you had someone get in your truck and they had like an old mixtape, their tapes were dirty and it just dirty up your head. So driving through Snyder, Texas, listening to Holy Diver, Dio. And when we were in the 80s, all that stuff was satanic. And if you look
it backwards.
Yeah, if you look at Dio, I think the font you can see devil in Dio. So
oh man, yeah.
And now I'm in the grocery store or Walmart and they're playing Crazy Train. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne was Satan embodied, and now you're buying some Rubbermaid Tupperware and they're playing Crazy Train. They've played it to death. I mean, it's just enough already. Well, enough about rehashing my youth and 80s rock, 80s metal. What a voice Ronnie James Dio had.
Oh, it was pretty awesome.
That's like my secret dream, is to be able to sing like that and to have been in a rock band in 1984 with David Lee Roth.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I'm famous at Oveja Negra for playing Van Halen. In fact, whenever Eddie Van Halen died, Kevin Fire messaged me and said, "Hey man, I'm thinking about you today."
Oh man.
So long history.
Yeah, you're a fan.
Yeah.
The Dio stuff. I did a painting. I did a show. I've done a couple of them, but the first one I did. I'm a huge music fan. I mean, music is huge influence. But I'm one of those that are tone deaf, and I have a bad singing voice, and I've never been able to figure out how to play anything. So I did I've done a couple art shows that I'll call my cover songs, and I did Holy Diver, and just researching some of the stuff. It's like he was the first one to do the horns and the evil eye, and just bouts with stomach cancer on his last tour. Just like kind of embodies the metal, I'm going to go to the end thing. And when kind of full circle with trail stuff. The last trail I've done in Salida was Pot of Gold, and it's over on the little rainbow stuff. I really wanted to name it Rainbow in the Dark, but it didn't.
I got chills, man. I mean, what a great lyric, Rainbow in the Dark.
Yeah.
It's like unicorns and bubblegum in the dark. I mean, it's just these contrasting words that just set the tone. We'll back up a little bit. We got off track with Dio.
Yeah.
So you're a local artist. We've got your artwork there behind you, trail builder. And the way I know you is that you've designed some bags or some of your graphics have been on limited run Oveja Negra bags. And how did you wind up in Salida? Let's do your origin story of where you're from originally.
Yeah, I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up in the middle of the state in a real rural area, Elon, Alamance County, kind of right in between Raleigh and Greensboro. I have family near the coast and from the mountainside, and I just kind of always gravitated towards the mountains. I went to college at Appalachian State University in Boone, and spent a lot of time recreating. I had family there growing up, and I was just kind of more drawn to the mountains. And I started coming out to Colorado summers in college to work at a camp in Florissant, Colorado. It's Sanborn Western Camps. And I came out to do kind of typical mountain outdoor stuff. I thought I was into rock climbing, backpacking, hiking, and I immediately, when I got there, kind of gravitated towards horse program and horse packing and ranch work, and that is what kept me there for a long time. I came back summers in college, and I came back for one last summer after school before getting a real job. And that one last summer was almost 20 years ago. So it's been a long last summer. Yeah. And when I worked there, one of the guys I worked with, when he left, he came here to be a raft guide, a really good friend. And I kind of started coming to visit him time off. I think the first time I came to Salida was during Fibark. So
crazy.
A fun time, but not very indicative for the rest of the year.
What year was that?
That would have been like 04,
okay.
04 or 05. And then that last summer when I moved out, I finished school in 2006, and that was my first winter in Salida. It was 06, 07, and I kind of went back and forth between here in the winters and doing horse packing and calving season on the ranch in the summer and spring.
So did you grow up on a ranch? You said you grew up rural.
No, I didn't. I mean, it was a rural area, but I grew up in a fairly typical southeastern neighborhood.
Okay. Did you ride horses when you were young?
A little bit. A little bit. My parents separated when I was a baby, and one of the things that we did to get us all together was riding lessons for a little bit. and rode them at camps and stuff. And during college, I worked on a farmhand draft horse, a organic farm that used draft horses for plowing and stuff, and got into that kind of that Southern Appalachian draft horse culture is awesome.
Were they using horses to plow just to keep their impact and the chemicals, or was that how were they using horses to plow?
Just part of it was tradition and just keeping it alive, and it was somewhat of a hobby farm. It didn't the folks that owned it were financially stable otherwise, and it was it was full on Southern Appalachian, kind of preserve the heritage type of a thing.
I've got a really good friend, I think it's Appalachian State, that she just got accepted to graduate school in the outdoor program. And so that's the first time I'd heard of the college. So to hear it come back up again.
Oh yeah. And I was in that outdoor program for a while, kind of an employee, and took classes. I bounced around majors quite a bit, and that was one of them. But it was one of the reasons why I went there.
What town is Appalachian State in?
Boone, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay, Cody, if I got the college wrong, please forgive me. But she was a raft guide up in around I cannot remember. Is it Evergreen? I can't remember where she's a raft guide. Every time we do this podcast, I get her location long. I went and rode with her last year. So yeah, to hear Appalachian State come back up again is pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you, Cody, because I'm right in the midst of a kind of homesick spell for that. This time of year there is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Cody's going to love that you call her by name. Cody's a real mountain woman. She's from Texas, and I didn't realize this. I've said this before on the podcast that you could, 10 years ago, I learned this, but I didn't know you could just come to Colorado and learn to be a raft guide without any experience. And I started really encouraging kids that I talked to. I work a lot with Texas Tech University, and I would speak to classes, and I would say, hey, if your parents are okay with it, I highly recommend going to Colorado and going to guide school, because those lessons are valuable. And talking to P.T. Wood and Mike Harvey, the raft guides, they moved here early on and looked around, bought property, and now they're the movers and shakers of Salida that have built the community. And it's just, to be a raft guide, you either are a lifer, or I think you are a leader. You lead a boat, you're responsible for people's lives, and that kind of transfers to everyday life.
Yeah, the transfer, though, with outdoor ed, one of the things I like so much was it is called transference, and I teach it in school as a theory of transference, and taking the stuff we learn on outings and in the outdoors and apply it. I'm sure I do it every day.
Yeah, it's tactile learning. I mean, you're leading people and responsible for people's lives. So it also makes things less theoretical. And if you're in your head and you're in a business class and you're learning about management, it doesn't apply very well. But like being in the outdoors and leading people, really, it makes you just a better person, I think. So you came from North Carolina and settled in Salida in the early 2000s.
2006 was my first house I rented. First, full winter.
Yeah. What'd you do for a living when you got here?
I worked at Monarch, and honestly, I didn't. The art scene was different then, and I didn't really know Salida was such an art presence, both historically. I'm still learning about kind of the art town history in Salida, and when folks started coming in the 80s. Yeah. And I'm that stuff I'm still learning, but it just kind of happenstance that it was an art community as well as an outdoor town. There weren't the trail systems that exist now weren't here. And I was really following people and kind of a way of life. And I've started snowboarding when I was 11 or 12, and I just always loved it. And being able to work at a ski resort was was pretty cool. It was tough. I remember the first week before I got my first Monarch paycheck, I was literally living on honey packets I stole from the cafeteria and a packet of tortillas. um, Good old days.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fond memory now, but probably at the time you were like, what? Why don't I just go back to North Carolina and get a regular job? I'm cold because Monarch gets really, really cold. It's one of the coldest places I've skied. The first time we skied there was in February. I'm like, my wife and I are like, man, this is really brutal. And the wind can really blow up there. And those lifts are slow. So you're on them for a while as you ride up the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it though. It's one of the things that's kept me there. I worked there. I stayed there for a long time. Um, it's my wife and I have slightly different origin stories, so it's kind of debatable. But we did meet up there somehow. So it's a pretty special place. Being able to, have my daughter was on skis when she was 13 months old and ended up on. That first day, we took a picture, and it was a Monarch billboard for a while. It's become it was a special place right off the bat, but just with all these ties to big life events and stuff. It's a nice place.
Everyone in Salida loves Monarch.
Oh yeah,
it's like we had a good friend named Chris Cassar. She was a local writer. She, Chris.
Okay, sure.
I mean, God. We skied with her the first time at Monarch, and we were like, man, we better be ready because, Chris is a professional rider and outdoors woman. And everyone you talk to, Monarch is just like a home ski resort, and it's kept its character, and it's still, I guess, well, the I can't remember their last name. The family that owns it now, they bought it. And
the Nichols.
Yeah. Their son was our neighbor when we lived here.
Okay.
So, yeah, Monarchs are really cool. I highly recommend it if you've never skied there. It's not like your big corporate resorts.
No, not at all.
And it's got all the locals love it. And if you live in town, it's pretty much you'll see everybody up there at the. We were up there skiing our first time, and they closed the path from avalanche danger, and so everyone just huddled up there in the lodge and like, oh hey, we know y'all. So Monarchs,
it's a community.
Yeah. So you snowboard, you ride goofy or regular?
I'm regular.
Yeah.
Yep.
You ever ski?
I have not. The closest I've gone cross country skiing once, and then I split board. So when my board is split, to go uphill, that's the closest I've ever come to skiing.
I never got into the split board or the backcountry skiing or the ski mowing, I guess they call it. And that was something I really wanted to get into, but it's like one of those things that I have mountain bikes. I have all kinds of stuff. It's one more thing and then you got to get backcountry.
It's not cheap either.
And you just can't do it alone. You've got to really learn the skills and go with someone to teach you so you don't die. You get caught in an avalanche. But that's something I really wanted to do. I learned to snowboard, and I've told this story on the podcast before. I learned my snowboarding class at Breckenridge, Colorado. This was probably 1984, 83. It had the staff, the magazine staff for Trans World Snowboarding. That's how new the sport was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so the editor and all the core staff were just starting the magazine, and they were in my snowboard class.
Were you an instructor?
No, okay. I was learning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I was 15.
Oh man. Yeah. That was early.
Yeah. So it was still, I went to Durango or to Purgatory to snowboard, and you had to get a license. I got on the lift, and the lift attendant's like, "Where's your license?" I go, "What are you talking about?" I was 16, and I bet it was 85 or 86. And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You need a license to snowboard. Instructor's got to watch you come down the mountain to make sure you're safe." I'm like, "I'm just here for the day." And so I had to wait on an instructor, and I got a little license that said, I want a license to snowboard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Change.
Yeah. I mean, those early days, the skiers did not look fondly on the snowboarders.
No. There are a couple holdouts still. It won't let us.
Yeah. Is it Utah Altus?
Yeah.
But Taos finally, I couldn't believe Taos a couple of years ago finally
Yep.
relented and let the snowboarders on. I've got a good friend that skis, and he laments about the snowboarders just tearing up the moguls because y'all just come through and plow through the moguls. I'm like, man, if you're a snowboarder and you can board moguls, you're badass, you know. And I said, it's no worse than guys snow plowing through the moguls.
Yeah.
Those are hot topics, though. Skiers, we don't want to get into hot
It's
topics.
gotten a little bit better.
Yeah.
This art, these are all, it's a series of art for skis.
Yeah.
Probably the most I've ever been involved in skiing is right here.
Okay. So this art here, how will that transfer? I guess you've got some samples down there on the bottom. How does this go? And is it a ski company you can talk about that you're doing this for?
Yeah. They'll probably be released in a couple of weeks. The company that's building the skis is called Romp, ROMP, out of Crested Butte. Nice handmade niche brand, really quality products. But I did the art for a shop and gallery that carries me, called Limber Grove. They have a place in Breckenridge and recently opened up in the old Vic building, the Victoria Bar building, in Salida. And he's awesome guy. Mason Mitchell commissioned this work for his shop series of skis that Romp's going to build. And each one is a certain a theme. This one in the middle of the cactus, this is the Arc Valley in Salida. There's a little S mountain hiding here.
Cool.
But each one is a region, this one with all the little huts is Hut Trip, and it'll be kind of their more backcountry specific ski.
Okay. I love that. Did they come to you or did you seek them out? How's that work?
It was Mason from Limber Grove. It was his idea.
Okay. So you're the art gallery owner connected you and the manufacturer, the ski.
He's doing, basically he's doing most of the behind the scenes work. I've just been doing the art for it. I just finished last week. It's probably the most work I've ever put into a single series.
I love the cactus with the blooming flowers, the tunas blooming, that especially embedded in this rugged, jagged mountain range. It's, there's a contrast there of the desert and and that's kind of Salida. It can be really, really cold, but there's still cactus blooming.
Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why I got stuck in. A lot of people gets attracted to it or get stuck here is, we'll have a powder day at Monarch, then you come ride your bike.
That's what I'd been coming through here since the late 90s. And I don't think I ever went to downtown until 2004. A friend had run Leadville and we'd crewed for him. And so we stopped and had pizza at Amicus in 2004 and then drove home. And then my wife and I would come through here on Jeep trips and stop and eat at Moonlight Pizza when it was just a little bitty gas station.
Oh, yeah.
And then in 2000, I think it was 10 or 11, we got stuck on the other side of the pass and drove to the cul-de-sac and ran the trails in March. I was like, holy crap, you can run trails in March in a town in Colorado?
Yeah. The trail marathon and half marathons in March. Some of the first ones.
Yeah. And so it just set that seed that we're like, man, maybe that's a town to move to. We weren't really seriously thinking about it at the time. And then finally we moved here in 2016. But you were one of the early trail builders in the area, or worked on trails early on.
Yeah. I kind of fell into it a little bit by chance. I had been riding mountain bikes for a while, and I now know better, but at the time I didn't know any better, and we were building our own back home, and I did stuff. The ranch I worked at, we were 6,000 acres, and then surrounded by forest. So I'd done a lot of stuff unofficially. I claim ignorance.
We all did it.
Yeah. You had to. There weren't. I mean, this trail systems here didn't exist. And my first, before the Salida Mountain Trail stuff started, with that travel management plan, nothing was signed, and everything was hearsay. And it made for, riding was interesting. Everything was an adventure. You didn't know if you were actually going to find the trail when you got here. It was literally that take a right by the rock that's shaped like a speed bump.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was how Cottonwood was first described to me, to find it. And you shouldered your bike, so you didn't make a trailhead and didn't expose the trail or blow up the scene or whatever. It was cool. I mean, it's great now. It was nice to be there when that still existed. And then how I got into trail building here, I after I left the ranch, I was trying to find a job working outside, and I never did the raft guiding thing. All my friends were. I do get on the river now, but I don't have a good reason why I didn't. I was more attracted to land-based stuff.
Me too.
So I was looking for jobs after Monarch with the Forest Service, with CPW, and then what I ended up where I landed was the Southwest Conservation Corps moved to Salida. Their first year in Salida was my first summer here, and with my outdoor ed and outdoor leadership experience, I came on as a crew leader. And it just happened to be when everything was getting started here with Salida Mountain Trails, or SMT, and where I led the crew that worked on some of the first official trails that were being built.
Oh, what was the first official trail?
The first one I think was Tenderfoot, and that was done by volunteers mainly. The thing that I thought was so cool is that it was kind of a mismatch of construction methods in the community, being new to a community and seeing people come together. I was paid. There were a couple other paid folks that were doing a lot of the coordinating through Salida Mountain Trails and Absolute. But all the early stuff was volunteer built. Or had some kind of volunteer element. I did Backbone, that we did about half of it with just us, the crew from SCC, but then the other half was mainly volunteers, and we kind of went behind and cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were actually funded by the city, saw the value in it, and was paying for us. And at one point, the city owned the mini excavator that SMT employees or Absolute employees. Andrew Messick was building Little Rattler. I think that's the original Little Rattler sign.
Oh, that's
back
cool.
There. But that machine I think was owned by the city, and we kind of worked behind him to clean up some stuff a little bit, but it was just an awesome, whole community effort from the get-go. And I wasn't part of the catalyst by any means. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff started before.
Yeah. Did that start with Absolute and Sean kind of when he first moved the bike shop here, looking at making the trails more, I don't know, legal, not the term.
A lot of that happened before I got here, but I don't want to misspeak, but as I understand it, there are a couple community members. Tom Purvis was instrumental and worked at Absolute for a long time, and Andrew Messick. Andrew had trail building experience working with Tony Boone, and Tony Boone was, I think, having him in town definitely helped and was an advisor to the folks early on before I started. And I think, just having the ambition and, and having the experience with Andrew and Tony, was awesome. you said Sean, and I mean, I think it wouldn't have happened without his support. I think Absolute paid the people that worked for SMT in the beginning.